The Mazda MX-5 Miata gets a few little tweaks and improvements here for the 2024 model year. And in this video, I'm going to cover the exterior, the interior, take it for a drive and see what it's like out on the road now, as well as talking about the kind of fuel economy you can expect, and then the pricing and how it compares to the competition. So as far as the little tweaks here for the 2024 model year, some are referring to this as the ND3 because of all the revisions that we have, and it's the biggest change since the 2019 model year for this. And so in its basically 9th year on sale here, it still looks really great. So for 2024 here, the little tweaks you get are new headlights, which have a new DRL element there next to the projector, but they still look really nice and still retain that same character we're used to from the Miata. The front bumper has also been slightly revised, mostly just in that grille area there, where you now have that big sensor for the adaptive cruise control system, which this now has as standard, keeping in line with the industry, and that's something that, you know, everyone's really moving to. And you know, I mean, from a look standpoint, having a giant sensor there isn't great. It would have been cool to see them maybe try and do some other little element on the right hand side, maybe a cooling duct to kind of even out the look there with, you know, 2 cutouts. But regardless, you know, I think it's a really, you know, fun little front end still on this vehicle. Coming down to the sides, you also have some new wheels here, at least especially on this Grand Touring version. And you also have this new color we have here, and there's a couple new colors. There's like a sand color as well, and you also have a couple little new options on the interior, which we'll get to in a minute as well. But out back there, you also will see that you have some new taillights, and I think that is a really nice improvement. They have a little bit more complexity to the design, but still obviously retain the same shape as the old ones, same kind of, you know, personality, but, you know, just a little bit more modernized, and I think they look really good. And so on the outside, obviously conservative tweaks, but nice little enhancements to keep this fresh, in my opinion, without changing the original formula. As far as the interior changes go here for the 2024 MX-5, the main change is this touchscreen. So you now have an 8.8-inch touchscreen. That's an improvement over the more square 7-inch touchscreen you had previously. This one, actually, I think is maybe even a little less tall, but, you know, just wider, of course, and a really nice screen, very high resolution, a very nice improvement over the old screen. And this one now has wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto as well, which is great that you have that functionality. And it also has the newer Mazda infotainment software, and all works very well. You know, something that's been around for, again, many years in other Mazdas, but nice that we have it here. We still are rocking the controller wheel down here for these. And the other big change here is that you have USB-C jacks now for 2024, and also this tan Napa leather is available here on this Grand Touring that we're in currently. Also, if you go for the club version but you don't get the Recaro seats, you now have a cloth that has a suede insert in them. So that's the other change here. They also, I think they changed the gauges, tweaked the font ever so slightly, I read, to make them a little more clear. Very, very similar to the old gauges, but, you know, just a minor little tweak there. But otherwise, it's all the same here on the inside, and, you know, still obviously a very small, cozy place to be, but I think really nice, you know, with the metal you still have in here. They also said that they added some padding down by your knees, or padding in the center console area, and I don't remember there being this soft padding down here by your knee, so I think that is an improvement. You still have some hard stuff where my knee actually contacts you know, the center console here, but, you know, nice you have some padding there, and even this little center armrest, you know, still has a little bit of padding. Not the most plush surfaces here, but again, it's a sports car and a very low cost one at that, so, you know, all that stuff is totally fine in my book. And overall, you know, they maximize the space the best they can here, but, you know, there's really not a whole lot to work with. It's not a very practical vehicle, obviously. But let's start up and go for a drive. The MX-5s now are using the newer Mazda key, which is a nice key, a little bigger than the old key, which was really skinny though. But, you know, this one still is a really nice key, and of course it is keyless access, keyless entry, push button start here as standard on all these now. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. Alright, so setting off here in the 2024 MX-5. So we, of course, are in the RF version. I have the roof down here, at least for now. It's been threatening rain all day. It's been a very rainy week, so it's been a struggle trying to enjoy the roof-off nature of the MX-5 here. But we're going to give it our best shot here and hope that the rain stays back. But anyway, so this one obviously is also the automatic. And I would just say right off the bat, this is not the ideal transmission for this vehicle. It's been a long time since I drove an ND with the automatic. It's a fine automatic if you just want something to putt around in and you don't want that involvement, but it does kind of hurt the fun factor of this vehicle, in my opinion. And it's also my first impression that I noticed actually setting off in this, and it's a little bit less whenever it's warmed up like it is now, but especially when you first start off, the transmission, the torque converter is really noisy. It has like a automatic transmission whine like you hear from like, you know, clapped out cars from like the 90s and the early 2000s that are, you know, kind of beat up. It just like is a very unrefined sound that you don't really hear in modern automatic transmissions. So that was kind of a shocker. Other than that though, you know, everything else about the MX-5 is fantastic, of course. It's just such a small little vehicle. It's so easy to maneuver and park, of course, so easy to see out of, especially with the roof down. You still have that little bit of a blind spot over your right shoulder thanks to the RF configuration here. I still would go for the soft top personally to get the full convertible experience. But if you're someone who really, you know, plans to drive this mostly with the top up, I can see how the RF could have some appeal here despite its, you know, extra cost. But yeah, you know, otherwise, as far as, you know, the other things here in this vehicle now for 2024, the main two changes are that they changed the steering feel. They just retuned the steering, and there's also a new limited slip diff in the back that has some new characteristics I'll talk about in a second. But as far as the steering, they said they wanted to give it better feel and weight, and so I mean, honestly, to me, it feels very similar to the old pre-refresh. I mean, it's been a couple of years since I drove, you know, Miata, but to me, you know, it feels pretty similar, honestly. I mean, it still feels really good. I thought that the MX-5 steering was some of the best in the industry still, just because of kind of its more dated nature and the simpler nature you can have with a vehicle that has 205 wide tires, that's as light as this is. You know, it's really great, but I think they said they also wanted to kind of retune the steering to limit the amount of body roll that you have, so maybe a little less quick. I don't know, to me, the steering still feels really great, and you still feel a little bit of that wiggle for sure. And we're gonna go ahead and put it up into the sport mode here though, and leave the transmission in its full automatic mode. But let's turn down onto this back road here and see how it accelerates. Here we go. Still have that awesome engine, but unfortunately with the automatic it upshifts early, even though we have a red line of almost 7,500 in these new, you know, ND2 engined Miatas from 2019 and beyond. Yeah, the automatic kind of short shifts, which is adding into some of that, you know, reduction of fun. Even in sport mode here, you'd think it would ring it out all the way, but I think this motor makes its peak power right at about 7 grand. So, you know, I guess they don't want to waste time doing the extra revs. I can understand that, I suppose, for maximum acceleration, but it's all about the fun. Again, get the manual, I will move on. But as far as the you know, whole powertrain, that is unchanged here for 2024. So we have a naturally aspirated 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. It does 181 horsepower, 151 pound-feet of torque, and so that's the same power that we've had since the 2019 revision. And you know, I think it actually really brought this car to life. And it sounds great because they just basically hot rodded the engine to get that extra power, which I love. And you know, even with the automatic, it's not a terrible experience. But I mean, with the manual, it is fantastic, and it's such an amazing little gem of an engine, in my opinion. But you might be able to hear a little bit of that transmission whine occasionally here. It's kind of, again, just so surprising in a modern car. But anyway, other things here. So it's a 5.5 second 0 to 60 time is what, you know, you're usually going to be seeing here. It's basically neck and neck with its main competitor, the GR86 and BRZ, which also have a 5.5 second 0 to 60, you know, depending on who you ask, but that's kind of the consensus here. And, you know, in a little car like this, it's all the power you need to have fun, to, you know, get moving in a hurry, and you know, revving out the engine is really satisfying as well. But coming up some corners here that I always take, and let's see how the MX-5 handles for 2024 with this new steering and this new limited slip diff. So nice and grippy. Always love these things just because of the low weight of them, you know. So with the manual, these weigh 2,454 pounds. The automatic, I think, you know, adds a couple dozen pounds of mass, but you know, not a wildly different figure. Should still be under 2,500. And thankfully, because of all the rain this week, I have been able to sample how this new limited slip diff kind of reacts to, you know, the wet conditions and just, you know, not having as much traction as the ideal scenario. And I really like how I can still provoke it to oversteer very easily but it still feels stable, and it only does that if I really want it to. If I'm really poking it and I'm really, getting on it, that's when it will do that. But, it's a really, well set up LSD so that, it gives you confidence and, sure-footedness. Now, the limited slip diff is still only on club and grand touring. Sport still does without it. And with a vehicle, again, that has as little power as this does, it's probably not a necessity if you're not tracking or autocrossing and things like that, or driving in bad weather. Now, as far as the changes to the LSD for 2024, they now have made the locking of it kind of work a little differently. So now it will lock up differently under like engine braking. So there's basically what they were going for was making it more stable under engine braking, and then just a little more eager coming out of corners. And I mean, it feels really good. And in sport mode here, it's even holding the revs here a little bit. Now, I will try some manual shifts here just to show you guys what it's like in an automatic MX-5, which, by the way, it's a 6-speed automatic. It's an Eisen 6-speed auto, a very dated transmission, unfortunately. So don't expect anything too impressive here, but... Okay, so going down to first, and here we go. So, it's a pretty quick little upshift there. We'll do a few more little accelerations in a minute, but... it holds gears in manual mode, which is nice. A lot of transmissions these days don't hold those gears. But, light throttle applications, it is kind of slow, with the upshifts. But, I mean, it's fine. It's completely fine. If you every once in a while, want to just play with it a little bit, you can. But it's a relaxed response for sure. So, nothing too involving, but it's nice you have paddle shifters, I guess. It's nice you can manually shift it a little bit if you want, but don't fool yourself into thinking it's going to be as fun as the manual, because it's not. Another low acceleration here. I do love that induction note. I mean, it gets moving nicely. I still wish we'd have more exhaust note out of the back here. I mean, it's fine. It's a stock Japanese vehicle. You always got to rely on the aftermarket pretty much for these types of cars, but thankfully there are lots of options, of course, especially now this car's been around for as long as it has. Another addition for 2024 is the fact that there's now a DSC track mode, kind of competing with the track mode you get in the BRZ and the GR86. Unfortunately, we don't have it here on this Grand Touring, so as we go around these corners here, just staying in sport mode, I mean, it puts the power down really well now that we're going uphill, kind of using that LSD a little more. It does a really good job putting the power down. But yeah, I'm not sure why we don't have the track mode here in the Grand Touring. I'm not sure if that's a club only thing, or if that requires the BBS Recaro kind of package there on the clubs, or what. But just keep in mind, if you're going for a Grand Touring, you don't get that track mode. It's just supposed to basically give you a little more leeway there with the stability control systems. But it's not really even cutting in on a spirited back road here. Me getting on the gas here, coming out of a corner, it's just doing a really good job. These are never really tail happy vehicles aside from low speed, like 90-degree kind of punching at scenarios. Other than that, it's always been a pretty stable ride, but I think they just wanted to continue to improve that here for 2024. And I think they also kind of wanted to control some of the body roll a little bit more. I've read some claim that the suspension has been tweaked, others claim it has not been tweaked for 24, but regardless, to me, it's been feeling a little more confident the past few years here with the kinematic posture control, which kind of does a little bit of a torque vectoring kind of sensation. I sampled that in my most recent time with the MX-5. So they've been doing all these little changes throughout the course of this whole vehicle's life to kind of make it feel a little more confidence inspiring in corners, while still retaining that fun character that we've had, for a while. And I think that, again, it feels really good. To me, I have no complaints. I didn't really have a whole lot of complaints before. And so I think, the consensus, after taking it down a back road, revving it out here, is that yes, there's some nice changes here for 24 with the new screen, with, the slightly tweaked styling and all that. But from a driving standpoint, to me, there's nothing here that radically moves the needle. And so, I think it's not quite as big of an advancement as we got with ND2 in 2019. that really, I think, perfected the Miata. And all these tweaks certainly don't hurt it, but if you have a 2019 or newer Miata, I wouldn't run out and upgrade personally. But you know, it's still a great vehicle nonetheless. And if you're someone who's new to the Miatas, or you have a pre-2019 and you're kind of sitting on the sidelines watching everyone else have fun with this new engine, you know, maybe this is the time to hop in and upgrade. But you know, just if you're coming out of a recent MX-5 purchase, don't feel like you missed out necessarily, in my opinion, again, aside from the screen. But as far as mechanical and handling stuff, again, maybe on track, you know, this LSD would prove its worth a little bit more, and maybe the track mode on track, you know, would really move the needle for those who are, you know, track rats that are really enjoying this vehicle on track. But on a normal spirited back road jaunts, I don't think you're going to really notice a difference, or, you know, a significant difference, you know, sane speeds at least. So take that for what it's worth, but hopefully it's a little bit of consolation for existing MX-5 owners out there. And now out on the highway here in the Miata, obviously a very noisy affair with the roof off, but I do have the adaptive cruise control system on, which is now, again, standard on these. And, you know, we have a gentle corner here. It does have lane keep assist now as standard. All the safety stuff is standard. Blind spot monitoring, all that, which especially, it's nice to have the blind spot monitoring with the RF's blind spot there. But, you know, the lane keep assist system in the Mazdas is very relaxed. Doesn't really hold the lane super intensely. It's always kind of deferring to the driver. So it shouldn't be an overreaching system. You can also turn it off if you don't like it. But as far as adaptive cruise, you know, it's doing a good job following this truck here and making sure that it's doing it smoothly, and you know, making those adjustments accordingly. And yeah, it's totally fine. I don't know how many people wanted adaptive cruise in a Miata, but here it is. It's standard, and you know, works fine. And I believe you do also get it with the manuals. So they've figured out a way with this, and also GR86 and BRZ have had the same improvements here, where they also do get that adaptive cruise with the manuals here for 2024. The only other thing I'll mention while we're talking about safety is just, you know, these days a Miata is just really the outcast on the road, you know, the outlier, with everything else ballooning in size and ballooning in weight. You know, you feel really small in a Miata, even more so now than you did, you know, 5 or 10 years ago when these first came out. It's an adjustment, and then honestly, it's a little bit of bravery that's required as well whenever you're around gigantic vehicles, knowing that physics is not on your side. But, you know, on a back road, or, you know, away from busy traffic, this thing is pure joy, and you know, you just focus on the awesome, pure driving experience that you really don't get in basically anything else these days. The last thing to mention here about the 2024 MX-5 is the fuel economy, and then the pricing and how it compares to the competition. So fuel economy in these is rated at 26 mpg in the city, 35 on the highway, and 29 combined. And I think you gain 1 mpg here with the automatic versus the manual on the highway. But I mean, that's actually really good fuel economy. And in my driving here, which I did very little highway driving, it was mostly around town, not beating on it, but, you know, just mostly around town, running errands and, you know, casual things like that. But I'm averaging 29 mpg. I'm hitting that combined figure without doing really hardly any highway driving, and certainly not even close to the 50-50 combined, you know, rating of how I should be getting 29. So essentially this car is overperforming its EPA estimates, and having fun in this thing and just living my life in it. I'm getting almost 30 mpg in a little fun sports car. I think that's really, really good. That's also a huge improvement over the GR86 and the BRZ, where you will, even in the EPA's testing, get 5 mpg less than this, with, again, similar straight line acceleration, even though you do have more power in the Toyota and the Subaru. But you know, you don't really get any extra benefits unless you're over, you know, a quarter-mile mark, and in that case, then it starts slowly pulling away in triple digits for the GR86 and the BRZ. But this is going to be same acceleration performance, and yet you still have, you know, 5 mpg better. This motor is clearly the more efficient, more well-done motor over that Boxer 4 in the Subaru and the Toyota. And so I love the fuel economy, and if you do want to daily drive one of these little things, 5 mpg is a big difference between this and the twins, so just keep that in mind. But the last thing to mention, though, is the pricing and how it does compare to those competitors, which are really only the GR86 and the BRZ as far as direct competitors, essentially. And so as far as pricing for this, these start now just over $30,000. This is the first year that they have crested 30 grand for the starting price. It's like 30,170. And then this one, as tested, being the RF Grand Touring with, you know, all the options and stuff. This one comes out to $39,875. And so basically, you know, 40 grand, you know, loaded up for one of these. You can also get them a lot more expensive with the club version, which starts, you know, higher than the base one, and also adds in, you know, the $4,800, you know, package for that BBS Recaro Brembos. This one doesn't have those Brembos. And, you know, I didn't talk about this on the back road segment, but, you know, the brakes are fine. I always thought that the, you know, Brembos were kind of overkill unless you, again, do lots of track driving. But for regular street driving, these brakes are more than enough for this little vehicle to feel confident in its braking. And I honestly, and the Recaros, in my opinion, aren't super comfortable. And it's $4,800, and the wheels, you can do your own wheels for way cheaper if you want. So, I mean, personally, I would skip the BBS, you know, Brembo Recaro package. These Grand Tourings are more my speed. But, you know, you can't even get one of these more expensive than this if you really try. But, I mean, again, partially there's really no direct competitor, and so Mazda can really charge whatever they want for the Miata these days, because, you know, what else has a convertible that competes against this? A Mustang? That's it. And those are going to be way more expensive anyway for a convertible one. And I mean, it's so much different than this from a handling standpoint. You know, it's double the car from a size standpoint, almost from a horsepower standpoint as well, but just completely incomparable in my opinion. This is a complete different vibe and a different buyer, honestly, I think. And so, you know, the main competitor though, GR86 BRZ, and especially if you're shopping for this RF, maybe because you want a more hardtop Miata experience, you know, I just have to say the GR86 starts a few $100s cheaper than this. And again, the GR86 and the BRZ, the big perks of them are that you have an actual back seat, you have a little bit more interior space in general, you have a bigger trunk, you can actually fold down the seats in the back and, you know, bring along 4 wheels and tires with you to a track day or whatever. You know, that is the nice perk of the GR86 and the BRZ. Now, that does have some downsides. The tech isn't as good in that, so you have no wireless Apple CarPlay or wireless Android Auto. You have to plug your phone in if you want that smartphone integration in those. And, you know, a few other minor little things, but like I said, you get that adaptive cruise for 2024 in those, just like this, and they're very comparable otherwise. But the difference is, once you go to these fully loaded ones, like, you can't really get full leather in a GR86 or a BRZ. It's always like a suede leather combo, and it's certainly not Nappa leather like this. So this is definitely the more plush interior. There's more metal, less plastic than you get in the Toyota and the Subaru. But, you know, a maxed out, even with the performance package, GR86 Premium comes in under $35,000. They really, you know, don't let you do too many options. They really keep those options reined in, versus this, again, kind of getting a little bit excessive with the options, and, you know, getting into the 40 grand price range for these starts to make it a little bit more of a debatable value. But again, especially compared to, you know, the GR86 and the BRZ, you know, this is starting to get a little pricey. Again, it's an unmatched experience, and if you want, you know, the extra engagement of not having the roof up, you know, this is the only game in town these days. And it's a fantastic choice as well. It's not just the only choice, but it is still the king of fun little cars, as it has been ever since its introduction, you know, nearly 35 years ago now at this point. So anyway, that's all of my thoughts here on the 2024 MX-5 Miata. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Mazda for providing me here with this vehicle to review for you guys today. Yeah, thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.